The Independent National Electoral Commission has announced the extension of its continuous voters registration across the country. Now, ahead of the 2023 poll, the Commission had fixed the exercise to end on the 30th of June. But given the renewed interest of Nigerians, or especially the youth, the electoral umpire decided to extend the deadline for the exercise indefinitely for now. There are now fresh concerns over the legality of this extension as an interim order issued by the Federal High Court in Abuja restraining the electoral body from extending the deadline for continuous voter registration. The judge, Mobolaji Olajuwon, ruled on the case based on the application filed by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and 185 other concerned Nigerians. SERAP and the other applicants in the case had argued that if the electoral body planned to end the exercise at the end of the month, it would illegally disenfranchise many Nigerians from getting their permanent voter cards. That is the issue on ground right now. So to make sense of all of this, joining us via Zoom is INEC'S National Electoral Commissioner for Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye. It's nice to have you join us, Mr. Okoye.
Yeah, good morning.
Let us say congratulations to INEC for the level of or increased number of registrations that we're seeing, which is good for the system. But help us understand at this time the extension of the deadline for voter registration is still a thing that Nigerians are trying to understand. From the recent development, can you enlighten us? What is the stand right now? Will this be extended beyond June 30th, or is there a time fix for this that we must act with?
The Independent National Electoral Commission has made it very clear that the continuous voters registration exercise will not end on the 30th. The Commission has noted the enthusiasm that has been shown by a lot of Nigerians to get their permanent voters card. And being a public trust, we have a responsibility to make sure that we register as many Nigerians as possible, especially those who show up. But the Commission is also a constitutional and legal body, and we must act within the confines and ambit of the law. And that is where the problem is. Yes, the Commission wants to extend the period for the continuous voters registration, but we cannot extend the period ad infinitum. Now, if you look at Section 19, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, it provides that the Commission shall, after the continuous voters registration exercise, display a copy of the voters register in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria and in the 8,809 registration areas of the country for claims and objections. And that these claims and objections shall take place within a period of 7 days. Thereafter, the Commission will have a period of 14 days within which to consider these claims and objections. Now, Section 19, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act provides that this exercise shall terminate not later than 90 days to the period fixed for election. 9, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act, it also provides that everything relating to voters registration, everything relating to the revision of the voters register and update of the voters register shall also end not later than 90 days to the period fixed for election. So the implication is that the lawmakers, those who drafted the Electoral Act, want us to complete everything relating to revision, updates, and registration of voters before 90 days. And that's exactly why the Commission started this registration of voters on the 28th day of June 2021. That was when we started the online pre-registration. And then in July, we also started the physical registration. So this registration has been going on for over 11 months. So, but we acknowledge the fact that Nigerians want to add value to the democratic system of government. And that is why the chairman has announced that the voters registration will not end on the 30th, that we are going to go on and see how far we can go. But having said that, there's a case that has been filed against the Commission that is coming up today before the Federal High Court. Now, our team of lawyers will be at the Federal High Court today, not to fight those who fight the matter, but to explain very vividly to the court what the issues are. That one, we have an obligation to display the voters register for claims and objections. Secondly, we have to clean up the voters register using our automated biometric identification system for purposes of removing double and multiple registrants. We have to also print these permanent voters cards and make them available to the registrants, because it will be an exercise in futility if we go on with this registration ad infinitum, and at the end of the day, we are unable to print the voters, permanent voters cards and make them available to the new registrants. That's exactly what we are going to explain to the court today. But the commission will not end the continuous voters registration exercise on the 30th. We are going to go on for a while, but we are not going to go on ad infinitum. So there's a possibility that after today's proceedings, depending on what happens, the commission may likely announce the exact date that we are going to terminate the continuous voters registration exercise.
I am always fascinated when we hear that a lot of people have come out to try to register. We see this cycle after cycle. I understand this cycle is a little bigger than the others. But do you think from what you saw in the last Ekiti election, any sense that when we go to polls, we reflect the enthusiasm of going to collect PVCs?
Yes. I will not use the Ekiti governorship election as an indices in relation to this. Rather, I will use the Osun governorship election that is coming up on the 16th day of July as a benchmark. From the information we got from the resident electoral commissioner for Osun State, the number of people trooping in to come and collect their permanent voters card has really increased, especially those who registered during the first and second quarter of the voters registration exercise, and also those who registered when we devolved the registration to the various registration areas, or what we normally call wards. And so there's enthusiasm, there's resilience, there's courage in people wanting to come out and exercise their democratic franchise. And I went to supervise the process in Imo State, and I also went to Rivers. And from my interaction with most of the new registrants, I can see a new enthusiasm, I can see a new resolve, I can see a new resurgence, especially amongst the younger elements of this country, wanting to be part of the democratic process, wanting to also be part of those that will determine the future of this country, and also wanting to show up on election day and make their voices heard. And I think that is what the country needs at this point in time.
Now, National Commissioner, now that we have fresh concerns about the legality of this extension, if the case does not go in your favor, I wonder what plans the Commission has if it doesn't go in your favor.
No, there is no way. The courts are courts of law and also courts of justice. My lord that issued that particular order, her attention will be drawn to Section 9, Subsection 6 of the Electoral Act. Her attention will be drawn to Section 19, Subsection 1 and 2 of the Electoral Act. Her attention will also be drawn to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that gives the Commission the discretion in terms of who registers, in terms of voters' registration. If you look at the constitutional framework, you will see that the makers of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria did not domicile the registration of voters with any other agency or any other organ. Even the state's independent electoral commissions do not compile the voters' roll. It is the voters' register that the Independent National Electoral Commission compiles that they use in conducting local government elections. And so the data of Nigerians that are domiciled with the Independent National Electoral Commission as very, very sensitive data, and the lawmakers envisage it that way, and that is why the Commission has been given the exclusive right to make a determination in relation to that. Even those who file the matter are aware that the voters' registration must and shall terminate within a certain period, constitutionally and legally. So I think that we will explain our position and also explain to our colleagues within the civil society realm that it is better for us to conclude the voters' registration process, get people to collect their permanent voters' cards, clean up the voters' register to remove double and multiple registrants, and also get those who are registering to show up on election day. That is what is important, and that is how to add value to the democratic and electoral process.
I'm just also going to ask very quickly about the extension. Does it capture the online registration as well? Because I understand it was supposed to end 1 month before the on-site registration.
Well, what we have done is that based on the clamor, especially by young Nigerians who are internet savvy, the Commission opened what we call a portal for people to do their pre-registration. Now, in this portal, we have 7 services. Pre-registration for new registrants is only 1 out of the 7 we open. The only one the Commission has suspended in terms of online is the pre-registration for new voters. Every other service is still going on online. If you want to do transfer, you can still go online and do your transfer. If your PVC has been lost, you can still go online. If your PVC is damaged, you can still go online. If you want to review the information relating to your data, you can still go online and do all those things. The moment we are going to close the voters registration process, we will close everything at the same time. It is only the online pre-registration that we close down. But the physical registration at the various registration centers, we continue. And one other thing we are doing is that, one, we have increased the number of IVED machines meant for the states, especially states where we have acute pressure. Secondly, the chairman of the Commission has also directed that our registration officers should also work on weekends to clear this backlog. He has also directed that the voters' registration in the various centers should not end at 3 or 3:30, but that our registration officers can go on up to 5 or 6 in the evening in order for us to clear this backlog. We are really interested in Nigerians registering and showing up on election day.
All right, Mr. Okoye, the last Ekiti election, of course, it was said to be free, fair, and successful and credible. However, there was the issue of vote buying, in which a lot of people had concerns. There were videos of young people, on social media who had gone to collect monies and all of that, or whom decided to sell their votes. Now, all eyes are on the next election in Osun State. From the perspective of INEC, what are the concerns and what are you hearing and what do you intend to do that would reduce the prevalence of vote buying?
Well, let me say straight away that the Independent National Electoral Commission does not buy or sell votes. The media, those who buy, and you also know those who sell. Because on election day, some of you are out there at the various polling units monitoring what is going on. But having said that, the issue of vote buying is a very, very serious concern to the Independent National Electoral Commission. And based on that, we have done a few things. We have recalibrated the configuration of our polling units to make sure that we guarantee the secrecy of the vote, especially when people are doing their thumbprint. Secondly, we have also made it very clear that no voter is allowed into the voting cubicle or into the voting compartment with a photographic equipment that will show how he or she voted. Not only that, we have held top-level meetings with the various security agencies, with the ICPC, with the AFCC, and other security agencies to make sure that they deploy some of their personnel to the various polling units to stem this tide of vote buying. But I think that the bulk of the campaign, the bulk of the advocacy should go to the political parties and their agents and their consultants and their middlemen who go to the various polling units to go and induce voters, using and exploiting the vulnerabilities of the Nigerian people, the poverty of the Nigerian people, and also some other variables that have led the people to say their votes. So I think that with more campaigns, with more enlightenment, with getting people to understand that that permanent voters card they have, that ballot paper has weight, has value, has potency. If we continue to do that, our people will come to realize that their future may be dependent on that singular vote that they cast on election day. And so I think that more enlightenment needs to be done, more advocacy needs to be done, and then the country must resolve once and for all to set up an electoral offences commission and tribunal to deal with the issue of arrest, the issue of investigation, and the issue of prosecution of electoral offenders. As at now, the commission does not have a police force or any of the security agencies to do arrests. The commission cannot investigate offenders. The only thing the commission can do is prosecute. But if you know the dynamics of election, some of the police officers that carry out arrest on election day are drawn from contiguous states to the locus where election is taking place. And immediately after the election, they leave. And sometimes when some of these cases go to court, getting them to come and give evidence becomes a very big issue. And then some of these cases are struck out on grounds of a lack of diligent prosecution. But if we have a separate agency that takes charge of arrest, takes charge of investigation, takes charge of prosecution, it will break the cycle of impunity in this country. And people will know that it will not pay for them to engage in vote buying and vote selling and other electoral malfeasance.
You depend increasingly on technology. Now, assess the improvement of elections of your INEC or election after election, and how you are preparing for nationwide polls. Especially you had Anambra, you now had the Kitty. Now, assess your improvement on technology and how well you are now positioning yourself for the national election. Because to do it on a national scale is not the same thing as doing it in a restrictive geography like that of a state.
Especially with the increase in the registered voters.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that the Nigerian people have been doing the assessment, and we will really prefer for Nigerians to judge us. But what we normally do is that after every election, we carry out both internal and external review of our performance. We ask the question and look at the issues where we perform woefully that we need to change completely. We also look at indices where we perform marginally that we need to improve. And then we also look at areas where we performed well that we don't need any further improvement. So that's exactly what we normally do. Now, in terms of technology, this commission has gone far in terms of imputing technology and using technology to obviate what I call pernicious human interference in the electoral process. In the area of party nominations, for instance, if you realize, the moment the party primaries were over, the commission gave an access code to the national chairman of all the registered political parties, especially political parties that conducted party primaries, with which they upload the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates into our INEC results, into our INEC nomination, candidates nomination portal. And that's what exactly they have done. So we no longer have fights in the premises of the commission by different factions of political parties. So the political parties do their thing and we don't interfere. The only thing we do is to download what they have made available and then publish in the various constituencies where they contest election. Secondly, the media and civil society groups and organizations now apply for accreditation online. The political parties also upload the list of their pool agents or party agents into our portal. So we don't have any interface with them. So that is that's technology. We have also gotten the National Assembly to impute the use of the smart card reader or the BVAS and other technological device into our electoral legal framework. And that is exactly part of the improvements we have made. This voters registration exercise, for instance, we are using the IVED for the voters registration exercise with the add-ons, thermal printer and fingerprint scanners. On election day, the same equipment we metamorphose into the beavers that we are going to use for voter accreditation. In other words, it has the capacity to read fingerprints and also has the capacity to read facials. If a voter comes to the polling unit and we are unable to authenticate the voter's fingerprints and unable to authenticate the voter's face, the implication is that the person may not be a registered voter, or that the person has left his face and fingerprints at home, in which case we are not going to allow the person to vote. After the election, we also use the beavers now transforms into the IRF, and we use it to upload results into our INEC result viewing portal for public viewing. And we also use it for purposes of satisfying the provisions of the law in terms of transmission of from EC8A into the first level of collation for purposes of collation of results. So I think that we have gone far with the use of technology. But we want to drive technology in the electoral process. We do not want technology to drive us. So what we normally do is that before we roll out, we make sure that the technology we are rolling out is very robust. And if we notice any challenges with that particular technology, we withdraw it and go back to the drawing board. So that is the way we have been operating. And we really seek the support of the Nigerian people for us to really impute technology more firmly into the electoral process.
Okay. Festus, let me ask about staggered voting system. In South Africa, they have a system where voting goes on for several days. In India, and in fact, you could vote for several weeks. Now, on election day in Nigeria, a lot of journalists don't vote because they are on election duty. A lot of security agents don't vote because they are on election duty. A lot of medical or health workers don't vote because they are on election duty. And then we also have, in fact, the diaspora voters is another topic of discussion altogether. What is INEC doing to create a platform or for a situation where these people who are working on election day can be involved in the process?
I think that is a very valid concern and also a very, very valid question. I was in Gambia during their last election, and the driver that took us around, as he was taking us around, at a certain point, he insisted that he must drive us to his own polling unit, that he needs to exercise his franchise before continuing with his with his work. But I also know, as you pointed out, that in some countries, there's what we call early voting for persons on essential duty, for security personnel, for journalists, for medical and health workers, and so on and so forth. That is one of the things that we need to work on. But it is also a function of the law. The law has to be amended to accommodate early voting in our electoral process. And so early voting is essential. Early voting is fundamental. Early voting will also lead to more people voting without them being disenfranchised. For instance, in every election, for the 2023 general election, we are going to deploy over 1 million ad hoc staff for the election. And most of these ad hoc staff will be deployed to places other than where they registered. So the implication is that over 1 million ad hoc staff may be disenfranchised if they are registered voters. The same thing with journalists, the same thing with all the security personnel that will be deployed for the purposes of this election. So if the law is amended and to provide for early voting, the Commission will not have any objection than to make arrangements for early voting. But as of today, the law obligates that all elections should be held the same day and the same time all over the country.
Yeah, I want to ask you, what happened between the APC hierarchy and INEC over the nominations of Lawan and Akpabio?
Well, nothing happened between the commission and any political party. And let me tell you, this particular commission is aware of the fact that there are 18 registered political parties in Nigeria. And these 18 political parties have the same incidence of registration. In other words, as far as the commission is concerned, there are no big parties in Nigeria and there are no small parties. All of them have the same incidence of registration. If any of the political parties falls outside the window of its incidence of registration, the Commission will rely on Section 225A of the Constitution to deregister that particular political party. Now, the timetable and schedule of activities rolled out by the Independent National Electoral Commission applies to all the political parties without exception. So what applies to Party A applies to Party B. The Electoral Act has made provision for 3 modes of conduct of party primaries. Either you conduct direct primaries, or you conduct indirect primaries, or you go by the consensus option. Section 82 of the Electoral Act has also made it mandatory that before any political party can conduct party primaries, that party must give the Independent National Electoral Commission the mandatory 21 days notice of its intention. And that if it does not give the commission this mandatory 21 days notice, whatever it does is invalid and cannot be accepted. So political parties conducted their party primaries. We monitored the party primaries. We issued a report relating to the party primaries. Now, Section 29, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act says that at the end of party primaries, political parties shall upload the list and personal particulars of their nominated candidates to the INEC Candidates Nomination Portal. But that the only list and personal particulars that shall be uploaded are the personal particulars of candidates that emerge from valid party primaries. In other words, if a political party did not conduct party primaries, it cannot upload the list and personal particulars of any candidate to our INEC Candidates Nomination Portal. If a political party did not conduct valid primaries, it cannot upload the list and personal particulars of any nominated candidate to our INEC to our Candidates Nomination Portal. So that's really the point. And this whole thing goes across almost all the political parties. There are some political parties that uploaded the list and personal particulars of less than 100 nominated candidates. It is at the discretion of a political party to upload or not to upload. But if you must upload the list and personal particulars of persons that emerge from valid party primaries. That is what the law says, and that is what the law says we should do.
All right, so Mr. Okoye, because I understand we are absolutely pressed for time, Nigerians will also like to find out this controversy surrounding the placeholder status for the vice presidential candidate's role, especially for the All Progressives Congress. I'm sure you can make an attempt to answer that question for us, please.
Well, the Constitution makes it mandatory that the moment a presidential candidate is nominated by any of the political parties, that presidential candidate shall, mandatory, nominate an associate. That's the word the Constitution uses. Nominate an associate to run with him as a vice presidential candidate. And all the political parties that nominated presidential candidates also complied with the intent of the Constitution by nominating an associate to run with the presidential candidate as a vice presidential candidate. All the forms that we received in the commission indicates the fact that the person that has been nominated is a vice presidential candidate. There was no place in any of the forms where any of the political parties indicated the fact that they nominated a placeholder or a space holder in place of a vice presidential candidate. Having said that, I want to say that I'm also aware that the Electoral Act makes provision for what we call withdrawal. Now, the Electoral Act says that the moment nominations are over, that no political party has the right to change any nominated candidate except under 2 conditions. 1, if the nominated candidate dies, or 2, if the nominated candidate withdraws from the race. And in this case, the nominated candidate must withdraw in writing through his own or her own handwriting, submitted to the party that nominated him, accompanied with an affidavit indicating the fact that he or she is no longer interested in running for that particular position. In that instance, the political party can now come within the framework of our timetable and schedule of activities and nominate a replacement. If you look at our timetable and schedule of activities, the last day for withdrawal by candidates shall be the 15th day of July 2022 for presidential and National Assembly candidates. So that is what the timetable and schedule of activities provide. And this is also in consonance with Section 31 of the Electoral Act 2022 as 2022.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Thank you so much, Festus Okoye, INEC'S National Commissioner, Electoral Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. Thank you very much for talking to us. As we get along, we know it's getting busier, so we'll have time to discuss other issues and create the enlightenment and keep it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the services you render to the people of this country.
Thank you.